Previously on episode 12 on the table, and it went to a vote from which it was 4-4, which means the vote failed, which means the TAD board has elected to do nothing. What happens now to the ISDs? Well, to give you my thoughts, sorry, my phone keeps ringing. Ooh, I got to take this. Why do you ask? Austin? Good afternoon, entities. Happy Palm Sunday. It's been about 3 weeks since we've talked last, and I need to catch you up on so many things that have happened since my last video. Obviously, as the video title suggested, I have spent 2 trips to Austin. Today, we're going to cover and talk about 7 things briefly, as fast as we can. Number 1, we don't need no education. My testimony and conversation about House Bill 148. Your confusing propaganda postcard. Number 3, Mom and Dad, the kids are fighting. My testimony on House Bill 2786. Number 4, cities have just figured out they are upset and are hurt by the reappraisal plan as well. Number 5, the secret letter. Number 6, the shell game and ghosting. And finally, number 7, taxpayer prohibition reappraisal. Lots to cover, so let's get to it. My first trip to Austin was on March 20th. Myself, as well as Gloria Pena, went down there to testify for House Bill 148, which will require that all TAD board members take continuing education. On April 3rd, I was notified of a postcard that was going out that, in my opinion, is politically motivated. I immediately reached out to Rick Barnes, who did not return my email, as I expressed concern that he was calling this tax relief and signing his name to it when in fact it is nothing more than tax deferred. So on April 3rd, I returned to Austin a second time, and this time I went and testified on behalf of House Bill 2786, which pretty much Austin is now putting their foot down about doing appraisals every year. There were quite a lot of testimony there from school districts, as you might expect. Here is my testimony.
Good afternoon. I show you as Fred Campos here on behalf of yourself, and you're for the bill.
I am for the bill.
All right.
In 1822, Charles Babbage invented the computer. He put it together and he actually built it. It was a great idea. The only problem was it didn't work. Brilliant idea that didn't work. It would take 140 years before they get it right. My name is Fred Campos. Many of you know me as serving on the HEB ISD for the past 10 years. But I also have been recently elected to the word of the room, the Tarrant County Appraisal District. So I am the tax nerd, and I'm the one that's been in there. I'm the one that in March, in a 5-hour meeting, got them together and had a water hose up and tried to explain this and study it. I have talked to many of the people you've heard in front of you. So here's the deal. Let's look at this from 2 ways. First, the taxpayer. The idea from the previous TAD was we want to hold down values so we can make it a flat rate. But when you hold down values and we keep the values the same this year, let's say they go up next year and the year after, all we are doing is just kicking the can down the road. I've coined the phrase, we're going to have a taxpayer surprise because the rates continue to go up. So is this good for taxpayers? Well, it may give them a delay, but it doesn't necessarily give them relief. And that's how this has been spun. Now, it's had an unintentional consequence, significant to the ISDs, which you've heard plenty of testimony about. By the way, I want to give you clarification. There are 2 issues here. You heard from HEB ISD, who is affected by it, as all districts are affected by it, but they're not failing the PVS, which is what everybody's focused on. Yes, we have 4 districts, at least 4 to 6, that will fail. You heard from Castleberry. But keep in mind a question that you were asking. This problem gets worse next year because the value is so all we're doing is watching this implode, and we have 4 to 6 that are crying out for help now, and then this gets even worse next year because we don't plan to reappraise until 2026. Okay, so this problem goes. No, Giovanni says, okay, you know what? We're going to fix this in the other bill, and that's good. He's going to give me $100, and I'm hoping that he does so that I can give this to the teachers. But unbeknownst to that $100 he's giving me, Mr. Chris is stealing $100. So we might end up with a 0, but we don't want this. Now listen, I have 3 kids, I have 2 boys. I let them fight it out themselves. You know what? They can work it out themselves. But at some point, I, as the dad, have to step in and go, okay, boys, we're out of here. We're out of line. We're out of line. Tarrant County's been debating this. I debated it for 5 hours. We're deadlocked at 4-4. Parents, we need your help. We need you to pass this bill. We need you to do what we've been doing for over 40 years, and that's appraising annually, because we have significant unintended consequences. And that money, if they fail the PVS, that doesn't go back to the taxpayers. That money is lost. So we are talking about unintended consequences. Heck yeah, I'm for this bill. Thank you for introducing it.
In addition to that, I heard testimonies from cities. Now cities have woken up in Tarrant County and realized that this reappraisal plan, which they only thought would affect school districts, is now affecting them.
65 and disabled. Last year, when there was the new child care facility tax exemption, we adopted that at 100%. So our appointed and elected officials really do take taxpayer relief seriously. In order for us to continue that good fiscal stewardship, though, we do depend on fair market value appraisals annually. And that allows us to continue offering a competitive tax rate while maintaining the services and amenities that residents and businesses need in the city of Fort Worth, and they've come to expect. Annual appraisals, we believe, are the key responsibility of appraisal districts. We, the taxing entities, pay them for that service. Those costs actually continue to rise, by the way, even with a readopted reappraisal plan. But Texas law, as you know, we've talked about it today, currently allows appraisal districts to reappraise periodically or up to every 3 years. We just don't think this is a sustainable model for cities, especially those in dynamic stages of their life cycle, like Fort Worth is. We're projecting to lose tens of millions of dollars in revenue without annual appraisals. Right now, we're just working on projections, but we're talking about $30 to $40 million in our budget.
In addition to that, we've been highly focused on those school districts that are failing the property value study, but pretty much all school districts that are not in recapture are affected. And here's a testimony from my own Vice President, Julie Cole.
Appraisal districts adopting multi-year reappraisal plans pose a great risk for a significant loss in revenue. For HEB-ISD, this loss could be as high as $15 million in revenues in one single year.
There was a secret letter mentioned that our tax assessor collector, or maybe the chairman, there seems to be some confusion on which hat he is wearing. He seems to be commingling those, talking about TAD-related stuff on tax appraisal, Tarrant as the tax appraisal, and there's a little bit of confusion, which is certainly adding fuel to the fire of needing change. But he sent this secret letter, and I asked him and sent it via email for a copy of it, of which he absolutely didn't respond. Of course, they gave me a copy. Basically, he responded using the letterhead for the tax assessor collector against HB 2786. Now, of course, he didn't tell the rest of us, or at least he didn't tell me, because I would not have necessarily made him look bad by actually testifying for it. Nonetheless, this is what happens when the chairman or maybe the tax assessor is not communicating well. I think at this point that Rick Barnes, our chairman or tax assessor collector, is ghosting me. I reached out to him at the Northeast Leadership Forum on April the 4th, and he pretty much ignored me. And then I showed up on this past Friday on April 11th at the Texas Tough Gala. He kind of avoided me, and then I finally pat him on the back, and it looked like he'd seen a ghost and jumped out of his skin. I just said hi and moved on. Which brings me to my final point. If Austin doesn't solve this, where does that leave us?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. I know we've heard from a lot of people today on this, and I have another one in a minute. I think we'll have a number of witnesses on, but I think it speaks to just how profoundly impactful these actions by the Tarrant Appraisal District have been to our community, to our school districts, to our cities, and why they're completely, frankly, inconsistent with state law, and why we need to clarify this in the law through this bill. Chairman Caprileone stepped out, but I would note in response to one of the questions he raised earlier. This was last year, actually, an interim hearing in Ways and Means. We had Commissioner Morath in front of the committee in an interim hearing, and I raised this issue then, and the projection of $100 million loss to our school districts in Tarrant County. He agreed. That sounded about right. So this is significantly impactful. So the assistant clerk has passed out several handouts, including one that I do want to note for the members received from Rick Barnes, who's the Tarrant County Tax Assessor Collector, and also the chair of the TAD Board of Directors. We obviously posted this bill for public hearing last Friday. I sent him a letter on Monday, encouraging him to feel free to come and provide public testimony so we could understand the proponents of this reappraisal plan, understand their perspective. He sent in a letter to the committee. He asked to be read in the record. We don't typically do that. People don't show up, but we are providing the committee. Every member of the committee is able to read the letter for themselves, so I don't think you need to read it to them. But I do want to point out a couple of things that he said. He said he was unable to be here because of his schedule being busy. He says the TAD board has worked diligently in response to Tarrant County taxpayers and their overwhelming requests for taxpayer reform. Again, we have heard from the appraisal districts, from the comptroller's office, from other resources in this committee this year. That is not the job of an appraisal district. The appraisal district job is to assess property in a fair, equal, and uniform way.
Well, I want to tell you a story as I wrap this up. Sometimes great intentions, great ideas have terrible intentions and turn out to be far worse than original. A good example of that is in 1920, you remember we passed the Prohibition. The US government enacted Prohibition as part of the 18th Amendment, and its goal was to improve the public morale, make society better, and ban alcohol. Unfortunately, when they did that, it actually created a black market. It had the rise of organized crime, think Al Capone, and it overwhelmed law enforcement and led to widespread disrespect of the law. And then, of course, in 1933, we repealed that with the 21st Amendment. I think at this point, I'm calling this the taxpayer prohibition of the reappraisal plan. I think we're just seeing the beginning of the unbelievable impact it's going to have. And in my next video, I'm going to give you 5 scenarios from the taxpayer point of view of why that this plan, if left in place, is going to make it maybe 2 or 3 times worse. It's going to actually cause taxes to go up as opposed to holding it down. It's a temporary freeze that has a really bad unintentional consequence. But for more on that, tune in next time.